Good evening. I'm Steve Worthington, the mayor of the city of University Place, and I'm calling the regular meeting of the University Place City Council for Monday, March 7th, 2022 to order. And with that, we'll start with a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Keel.
Councilmember Keel, present.
Councilmember Wood.
Councilmember Wood, present.
Councilmember McCluskey.
Councilmember McCluskey is here.
Councilmember Fleming.
Councilmember Fleming here.
Councilmember Belisi.
Councilmember Belisi here.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa.
Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa present.
Mayor Worthington.
Mayor Worthington here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. If you would please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the country, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You're on mute, Mayor. You're on mute.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Councilmember Belisi. I second.
Are there any objections to approving the agenda or additions or changes? I don't see any objections to approving the agenda. The agenda is approved as presented. And with that, I will move on to a special proclamation this evening. Excuse me while I get my proclamation, the proclamation in front of me here.
Mayor, do we need our guest to sign in while you're reading it?
We would like, we have a special guest for us this evening, the honorary consul for Ukraine, Valery Golubor-Otko. Mr. Golubor-Otko, if you're there, you're welcome to turn on your camera and mic as you choose.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, as you all know, Ukraine and Ukrainians are going through war, protecting our freedom, protecting our liberty, protecting our lives, values, principles, and those are values and principles that are dear to hearts of Americans. And I appreciate your city standing together with Ukrainians and doing this proclamation. I know that it's dark times for Ukraine, but soon morning will start, and we believe that we're gonna win in this war because God is with us. We are protecting our homeland, and we are fighting against evil regime of Putin, who has same spirit as Hitler had and as Stalin had. And together with whole world in unity, we are standing against this evil regime. Thank you for everything you are doing to support our people and to support our country. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to strengthen our relationships between Ukraine and your city in future.
Council Golubor-Otko, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to present to you on behalf of the City of University Place and in the stead of the people of Ukraine the following proclamation. Whereas previously ruled by the Soviet Union, Ukraine gained sovereignty in 1991 in pursuit of true democracy, allowing for freedom of religion, speech, cultivation of their rich culture, and denying the statehood of modern Ukraine by Russia's elites, which inhibited the ability of citizens of Ukraine to fully embrace their position in the global world. And whereas on February 24th, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin launched a full-scale attack on the Ukrainian government and democracy itself, forcing hundreds of thousands to flee their homes, communities, and families in order to seek refuge in other nations. We must unite and condemn this blatant violation of international law, calling this action unprovoked and unjustified, and reassuring support for actions taken by the Ukrainian military and all those involved. And whereas University Place is home to Ukrainian Americans who bring with them their beautiful culture and strengthen our diverse community, many have come to University Place as immigrants and have been welcomed with open arms to our city. Now, therefore, the City Council, the City of University Place, on behalf of its citizens, do hereby stand in solidarity with the Ukrainians and the brave citizens in both Russia and Ukraine who are standing up against the brutal assault on democracy. Proclaimed by the City Council of the City of University Place, Washington, on March 7th, 2022. Sir, I'll see that you get the signed copy or the signed original of this proclamation. We do indeed stand with you, and we wish Godspeed to finding an end to this unprovoked conflict, this unprovoked war. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to return back to our agenda, or continue with our agenda, excuse me, and that includes now a consideration of our consent agenda. Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
Mayor, this is Mayor Pro Tem Figueroa. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Very good. Is there a second?
Mayor, this is Councilmember Belisi. I second.
Thank you, Councilmember Lisi. We have a second. Are there any objections to the consent agenda? Any objections? Don't see any objections. The consent agenda stands approved.
Mayor Worthington, point of
Yes.
order. I believe we needed number 6, public comments.
Let's see. Did I skip by public comment? I'm sorry. I guess I was in a hurry. No need to be. But thank you so much for helping me remember, for bringing that to my
Just in
attention.
case we have some public that wants to
Absolutely.
make comments. Yeah.
I appreciate that. So let's go to public comment. If there are members of the public who would like to make comment, you may do that. Of course, we're here to hear those comments, and we're now in the public comment portion of the agenda. This is the opportunity for members of the public to provide comments to the City Council for any items not appearing on the agenda or on the consent agenda. If you intend to provide comments for the public hearing scheduled later for tonight, that will be addressed later in the meeting. However, the same instructions will ultimately apply. Participation in public comments and public testimony on public hearings are accepted by email. Written comments should be sent to the city clerk at Ingenita at City of UP, so EGENETIA at thecityofUP.com. Comments received by 1 hour before the meeting are provided to the City Council electronically. By telephone, call 1-509-342-7253 and enter conference ID 330-220-080#. Use the raised hand feature by pressing *5 on your phone to be recognized. Your name or the last 4 digits of the phone will be called out when it is your turn to speak, and at that time press *6 to unmute your phone. Or by computer, join the meeting virtually by clicking on the hyperlink provided in the agenda. Use the raise hand icon located at the top of your screen to be recognized, and your name will be called out when it's your turn to speak. City Clerk, let's see, the City Clerk has told me that we don't have any comments submitted to us in writing, and so do we have anyone in the audience this evening who wishes to make comment? And Emmy, you might be in a better spot than I am to figure out if there's anybody there raising a hand. I'm looking.
Mayor, I don't see anyone in the lobby raising their hand.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the help. Then I don't see any comments at this point, and we can move on to our public hearing. Before we do that, I know,
It's consent agenda.
let's see, we passed the consent agenda,
Did we?
and I think the public hearing's next on next item up. The Mayor Pro Tem, I understood from an earlier conversation that you were going to be needing to leave early this evening. Is that still the case?
Correct. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Well, thank you for helping us get things started.
Thank you.
And with that, we are preparing to enter into the public hearing. The hearing will be on the Stormwater Management Program update. And the procedures to participate in the hearing to make comment are just as I outlined previously. And we're going to invite Todd Smith to help us help deliver some information on the Stormwater Master Plan and then to consider comments from the public. Todd, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
And actually, I think I might.
Oh, excuse me, Jack, you're up.
That's right.
Okay, sorry about that. I had a note that said Todd, sorry. Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So would you like to introduce yourself for us, Jack?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Jack Eklund. I'm the Director of Engineering. And with me is Todd Smith, our NPDES Coordinator. Tonight, we are bringing for public hearing and your consideration the annual update to the city's Stormwater Management Program. We are required annually to update this program as a condition of our NPDES municipal stormwater permit that we have through the Department of Ecology. Our program lists the components that are required to be addressed under the permit and identifies the actions and activities to be conducted by the city in meeting the permit requirements. The elements include stormwater planning, public outreach and education, public involvement and participation, mapping and documentation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, controlling runoff from new development, redevelopment and construction, operation and maintenance, source control, monitoring assessment, as well as reporting. The changes to this year's update are associated with the removal or updating of the 2021 milestones, change of dates or of the public participation requirements, as well as expanding our stormwater planning requirements associated with our current effort of updating our stormwater comprehensive plan. The proposed update has been posted on the city's website since February 16th, and contact information was provided for the public to review and provide comments. The proposed update has been reviewed and is in conformance with our obligations under our NPDES permit, and its adoption helps ensure our continued compliance with the Department of Ecology requirements. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on this, and if you can refer to the council bill, your council packet, it's the program in its entirety is included in there for your reference.
Thank you for the update, Jack. And of course, Council, we've studied this previously in our study session segments of meetings. But if you do have any questions that are fact-based before we discuss the item, this would be an opportune time to ask those questions, and then we'll move on to public comment and then your consideration for the issue, the adoption of the plan. Councilmember Keel.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Keel. So, Jack, Todd, thank you for the presentation and all the discussion that we've had already to date on this topic. I just want to ask, just for the record, to check again to make sure that I'm understanding correctly. We do this all the time for multiple years, and so my understanding is that there's not anything that's materially different than what we have seen in the past in this go around of our stormwater process. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So this is we're required to update it and keep it as each year goes by. We basically change when you have big milestones or something happen. The last time we had anything big was a few years ago when the permit changed. There's usually about a 5-year permit cycle. And so that was the last time we had big changes. Here is really just status quo. We're still meeting our obligations. It's what we're doing. We have a few tweaks, but mostly on the stormwater planning, just talking about our comp plan. We did confirm, I know this was a question that came up for Councilmember McCluskey in the study session for the education outreach. We did update that we are able to provide some of those reports, or not reports, those classes we do, to post them on our website. And so that's something, we are limited on some. They do have a few big name, I guess, in this business, as big as you can get, but at least they have control of their own videos. So those we can't do, but like most of them we can put on. So that's been updated on the thing, but that's really the only changes significant that we have.
All right. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Jack and Todd, thanks for being with us tonight. And as always, you guys do a stellar job. A couple of quick questions for you. You know, with the amount of building that UP is going to see here very shortly, does the impact of the stormwater from those projects on our current systems, is that reported in this year's MPDES or is that next year's?
It gets reported in the year that the construction happens. So the annual report that'll be due in March is really for the stuff from last year. So the next year's annual report will have some of the impacts from those developments. They are all held to the same water quality standards and both water quantity and quality standards in the Department of Ecology and the King County manual that we've adopted. And so they're pretty strenuous for that, but those will be included in next year's annual report.
Okay. And with that said, I'm going to presume we did the annual survey of our current retention ponds throughout the city. I didn't hear any reports that we needed any upgrades or maintenance, so I'll presume that that's for another time later on, either this year or next year.
Yeah, and actually it's timely you brought that up because next year's SWIMP program, because one of our milestones is a comprehensive review and update of our own maintenance procedures. And so that will be seen in next year's SWIMP if we need to update, because that's due, I believe, in Todd, is it May that it's due this year for our update?
I believe that's true.
Yeah, so it'll be in next year's, but yeah, it'll be everything, our procedures will be all up to date as of May this year.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you, Jack, and thank you, Todd. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other council comment or questions at this point? All right. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment during our public hearing? I'm looking for raised hands there. I'm not seeing any. And I'll give it one more call. Just any public comments at this point? Not seeing any. The instructions are on the screen. I think we are ready to actually move on to the consideration of this issue.
Mayor,
Mhm.
This is Councilmember Belisi. I make a motion to adopt the 2022 update to the City of University Place Phase 2 NPDES Stormwater Management Program.
Thank you, Councilmember Lisi. Appreciate that. Is there a second?
So Councilmember Keel, I second.
Thank you, Councilmember Keel. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Any further discussion? I know we've had a chance to address questions this evening in previous meetings as well. I don't see any discussion. With that, we may proceed, and I believe this would be a roll call vote.
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Keel,
Councilmember Keel, aye.
Councilmember Wood,
Councilmember Wood, aye.
Councilmember McCluskey,
Councilmember McCluskey, aye.
Councilmember Fleming,
Councilmember Fleming, aye.
Councilmember Belisi,
Councilmember Belisi, aye.
Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem is gone. Mayor Worthington.
Mayor Worthington, aye.
The
With
vote
that,
result,
motion passes.
6 ayes. Motion
Okay,
carries.
6 ayes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we're on to our discussion of the of ARPA, as we fondly call it, but the American Recovery Act. And to help us in that discussion, we have our city attorney, Matt Kaiser, and perhaps Assistant City Manager Eric Faison, but I'll leave that to Matt to introduce the rest of that.
I think you got just me tonight. I don't see Mr. Faison on the call.
Okay, no problem.
So,
and excuse me, it's the American Rescue Plan Act. I had misacronymed it, but
you're dealing with the federal government. It's to be expected. Good evening, council. For the record, my name is Matt Kaiser. I am your city attorney. Tonight before you for action is a resolution relative to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and for other related purposes. The resolution before you was studied at your last study session in broad strokes. It does a handful of things. The first is, as discussed at the study session, is that it identifies certain tentative expenditures and priority uses of those funds, those being falling within 3 general pots of money. In round numbers, approximately $6.5 million towards the research, design, and construction of certain sewer infrastructure, approximately $1.8 million towards the provisioning of vital police and public safety related services, and an additional IT staffing and equipment to the tune of about $500,000. There is additionally an unallocated amount of approximately $700,000, which is just left out there for future allocation for the council. The second item has also discussed at the study session under the ARPA final rules. It allows local governments under one of the subpots of ARPA to make a one-time election under a standard distribution to take up to $10 million worth of economic business loss. This resolution would memorialize that attempt. The final thing that I think is also important to highlight before I yield the floor back to council is that this resolution is not a substitute for an appropriation. It's a policy statement, if you will, on the part of council. How would council like to generally, in broad strokes, allocate those monies? Such allocations would certainly follow the city's usual budgetary practices and procedures, such as the very next item on the agenda, as we get to that item. So with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Do we have any questions from council? And we've had a fair amount of study on, anticipating for, it's nice to get it to this phase. So I think council's comments have been previously incorporated. But Councilmember Fleming, you're.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any questions. I just want to make a quick comment and just reiterate again, I appreciate the work the staff has done on this particular piece of legislation, but just want to underscore, and I know we have sent this off to, I believe it was our Economic Development Committee or Council to look at this, but I just want to underscore my support and the importance that in that remaining 700,000 that we keep in mind that some of that money needs to go towards support of our local businesses and not get eaten up into other projects and that we may come up with as a city. So that's the only thing I want to add to this.
Thank you, Councilmember Fleming. Appreciate your comment there. Any other comments? Okay. Hearing none, then I believe we also we're ready to consider a motion.
Mayor, this is Councilmember Belisi. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution electing the standard allowance for revenue loss and to the state several intended uses of the City of University Place's allocation of local fiscal recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act and for other purposes.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Councilmember Belisi. And is there a second?
This is Councilmember Keel. I second.
Thank you for the second. We have a motion and second. We're ready to consider the issue. And with that, I'll ask MA to conduct, Councilmember Keel.
Great. I was waiting for you to say, is there any further discussion?
As well, I should. Yes.
Great.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to just really just voice my appreciation for staff working on this legislation and working with us to put together the package that we have before us. The amount is, in particular, the money for sewer, I think is just outstanding. I mean, we have had that as a problem. It's a long-standing issue in our city. This doesn't answer the full problem, but it gets us, $1.6 million closer to the solution. And I just think it's just outstanding. And the other three things or four things that we're doing with these dollars are top of at least my mind, and I think for the city to move forward. I do want to echo Councilmember Fleming's comments about looking at that $700,000 and making sure that we do carve out portions of those dollars for businesses, and looking forward to what our Economic Development Commission will come back to recommend to us. So I'm very excited about what we are doing here, and hopefully we'll pass. I believe we'll pass as a city. I'm involved in this process in a few other agencies, at the $1 million level, and I can tell you what we're doing here is second to none of what these other places are doing. So I just want to thank staff and everyone for this work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for the comments. Any other comments or discussion on this issue before we go to a vote? Don't want to rush to judgment here. All right, I'm not seeing any others. Councilmember Keel, your hand. Did you want a second bite at the apple, or are you? You're good. Okay. All right, and with that, Demi, now would be a great time for that roll call.
All right. Councilmember Keel.
Councilmember Keel, aye.
Councilmember Wood.
Councilmember Wood, aye.
Councilmember McCluskey.
Councilmember McCluskey, aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Councilmember Fleming, aye.
Councilmember Belisi.
Councilmember Belisi, aye.
Mayor Worthington.
Mayor Worthington, aye.
Vote results 6 ayes. Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. Motion passes and carried. With that, I believe we are set to move into our city manager's report and council reports in turn. So let's turn. Nope, not yet. All right. Oh, the ARPA sewer contract. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, folks. Okay. So now that we have a budget set aside for such purposes, we're going to consider a contract that would provide for engineering services in regards to the sewer project. And Jack Eklund is back with us to help us with that. Thank you, Jack.
Yep. Thanks again, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So as you mentioned, I'm bringing to you tonight for consideration a professional engineering services agreement for developing a program to evaluate and prioritize areas in the city for sewer expansions. As we just discussed in the previous agenda item, the city has obtained funding through the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, and some of which we've identified funds for extending sewers into unserved areas. We did have a request for qualifications advertised for these consulting services, and we conducted this interviews and selected Gray and Osborne to perform the work. We found Gray and Osborne to be best qualified for the work with extensive experience in the assessment and development of sewer utility costs and feasibility. The elements of the scope of work include public outreach, coordination with Pierce County utilities, data acquisition, sewer layout and cost estimates, funding strategies, prioritization, and connection policies. Gray and Osborne has submitted a proposal in the amount of $130,000 for the performance of this work. The engineering staff have reviewed the proposal and found it to be reasonable relative to the amount of work required. This amount is within the budgeted amount and no additional appropriation would be required. This concludes my report. I do recommend authorization of this contract and would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Very good, Jack. Thank you. And Councilmember Fleming.
Jack, just one quick question on the funding for this contract. What pot of money are we pulling that from?
It's part of the ARPA funds that are for the sewer itself. So it's part of that sewer expansion money.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Not seeing any, then I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve and authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Gray and Osborne, Inc. in the amount of $130,000 for the purposes of doing an assessment and report for sanitary sewer service.
Thank you, Councilman Polisi. Is there a second?
Councilmember Keel, I second.
We have a motion and a second. And is there any further discussion? Councilmember Keel.
Mayor, point of order,
Yes.
public comment, Terry, on this one?
I'm sorry. Oh, a public
Did we
comment?
go through the public commentary? I don't think we have.
So call for public comment? Yes, thank you. And so, thank you. Appreciate that. And then, so on the screen, you have instructions on how to make comments. It is the same instructions we provided previously. And if you would like to make comments about this issue, please call on 509-342-7253 or come in the meeting and raise your hand as appropriate. Do we have any public in the calling in or raising hands at this stage?
Mayor, I don't see anyone in the lobby at this time, at this moment.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you. With that in mind, I'll return to Councilmember Keel and so that you can discuss the issue. If there is a late arrival in the public, we'll give them an opportunity. So Councilmember Keel.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Again, Jack, we studied this and I just want to ask this question to make sure I'm clear and as a matter of record and all those kind of happy things. One of the things that we talked about, and I want to make sure that we're doing with this contract is that as we look at sewer in that area, one of the concerns that I've raised, and I think some of my colleagues have raised as well, is how do we actually get the sewer the last mile or the last 30 feet or 100 feet to people's homes, right? The main thing we're going to do is that main pipe connecting to the system, but it does no good if it's in the middle of the road, but it's not at my house. So how is the consultant going to work with that or get information around that, and how are they going to kind of bridge that gap of information for us?
Yeah, so a big part of this, and it's really one of the first tasks, is to do a pretty extensive public outreach and education element to, one, gauge interest of the different areas, and as well as kind of figure out what the needs are. We know they're unsewered, but it helps us to be able to develop that prioritization if we know what are the public view, what would they like to see and what are their needs. Part of that, and then when they do their both coordination with the county and their different the acquisition as well as the sewer layout, it all kind of leads into each other, right? And then eventually leading into those funding strategies and the connection policies. So some of it will look at, what can we do? What is within the legal framework? Can we do work on private property versus not? And that's going to be all part of their assessment and recommendations. And then from a funding standpoint, what do we provide and how do we stretch the money? Do we want to stretch it further and have some different policy? Do we want to have the, anyway, all that's going to be part of what they'll take into consideration, give us all the options, and then that will be, before we have the final program, we'd come back to council with the recommendations from the consultant so we know which direction we head before they finalize it.
Yeah, and that's great news that we're taking a look at that, because I think, at least in my view, it'll all be for naught, pretty much, or if we can get it down the road, but it's not at the individual's homes, right? And so we haven't really touched so that's key, at least in my mind, very important that we work on that. Now, and also in review of all that stuff, I also made that suggestion where there's quite a lot of other money that's out there at the federal level that I'm hopeful that staff, and I know, staff is small and you guys are spread out, and I get all that, but, it's time to make hay right now, at least in my mind. I mean, the money's there, right? And so my interest is that we, engage either through staff or through some other kind of resource, however the city manager and you all want to work that out. We have some resource that has the ability and the capacity to look at these additional dollars, of billions of dollars that's coming out of DC now for cities, right? And that they can look at those things and begin to weave and craft together opportunities that we can match up with this 1.6 million that we have and this effort we have, so that we can actually get the sewers to people's homes. Okay, so I'm hopeful that staff does that. Okay, and I've said it now 3 times. I'll probably say it 8 more times before this is all over. But I think that is the right thing to do. And again, I'm excited about what you guys have already done. But to really get around all the bases, I think we need to do this as well. My last comment on this, and this is a shameless plug to my colleagues, for my colleagues around this. I just sent an email to the city manager, and he probably just got it just before this meeting, whereby I received an email from Senator Murray's staff, and Christine was reaching out to me, saying, "Hey, I met you. We talked before. The senator has access to a bunch of money we're trying to get out to everybody. I'm emailing you because I want to talk to you about getting money to University Place and getting money to Sound Transit." And she sent directly to me for that, and I sent it off to Steve Sugg and to Peter Rogoff. The plug is, that's why we have to reach out beyond University Place and get involved at the regional levels. That is the reason why, because when we do, then we're connected to all these opportunities. And we, as University Place as a city, we are no longer the sleepy city that's just outside of Tacoma. We have to be regional. We have to start thinking bigger, because then we'll get these access to these things. And so I want you guys to join me and I know some of you have begun that, but I really, if we're going to do something for the citizens, I think that's a part of my opinion. I think that's part of one of the things that we got to do. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Keel, thank you. Appreciate your comments and the shameless plug. That is good to hear. And I may have some follow-up comments in the comment section later on in our agenda. Do we have any other discussion at this point? I see a citizen's hand is raised, and I'm a little out of order, but I did indicate I would consider that. I think it's more important that we hear from them than it is to necessarily stay in order. So I would, let's see, I see James Fior, his hand is up. If this is in relation to the issue in front of the council at the moment, I would invite you to make comment. If it is another issue, then we can bring that up a little bit later.
Mayor Worthington, council members, I apologize for raising hand out of order here. I actually ran to use the restroom when you invited to comment on this, but I was hoping to speak with this. I actually raised, made some public comment at the Economic Advisory Commission related to this and the spending of these ARPA funds, specifically with regards to the sewers a little bit ago, but I think my comments that day ended up coming in garbled. But given that we're already looking to spend these funds to investigate how we can expand our sewer network and how we might be able to do so in a financially prudent manner, I think another thing we should be considering, especially given that these ARPA funds can be spent on broadband infrastructure, would be expanding this study to look at the possibility of implementing a Dig Smart or Dig Once policy. For those who are unfamiliar with it, Dig Smart or Dig Once policies have been something that folks have been advocating as a means of bridging the digital divide and bringing improved broadband infrastructure to America's communities. The basic idea is that if you're going to be digging anyway, especially digging in right-of-way, the number one cost of installing broadband and especially fiber is simply running that empty fiber conduit through the ground. While you've already dug, you might as well install the fiber conduit. Not even necessarily the fiber optics, just the conduit. A lot of communities are doing this right now in order to make it so they can scale more easily to fiber infrastructure in the future. I think that if we're going to be doing this digging, and especially if we're going to be having a study done with respect to this digging, it seems prudent that we would spend that little additional expense to see how much that might cost us and whether or not we could use those ARPA funds effectively to do so or to implement such a policy. I agree that maybe University Place doesn't have a need for that kind of fiber infrastructure right now, but I imagine that in 10 years, 15 years, the communities that did do that will be seeing like the economic benefits of it, and those communities that didn't are going to be scrambling to figure out how they can go ahead and get that fiber in the ground and do so cheaply. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fiora. I appreciate your comments and certainly related to our issue. So, Council, any other discussions? Hearing none, and with the motion on the floor, and thank you for that, I would invite us to move to a roll call vote. So, Emmy?
Councilmember Keel?
Councilmember Keel, aye.
Councilmember Wood?
Councilmember Wood, aye.
Councilmember McCluskey?
Councilmember McCluskey, aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Councilmember Fleming, aye.
Councilmember Belisi?
Councilmember Belisi, aye.
Mayor Worthington?
Mayor Worthington, aye.
Vote results 6 ayes, motion carries.
Okay. Good, motion is passed, and now we can move on to the city manager's report. Thank you, Mr. Sugg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. A couple quick updates. These are Jack's projects, but I'll report on them anyway. Alameda Avenue is going to be open in a couple weeks. It's certainly going to be open before the end of the month. If you've driven down there, today they were planting trees. It's looking really good. Ground cover is going in next. It looks like it should be open already, but we'll just give them time because the workers are still there. This is a $1 million project that was funded by traffic impact fees that completes a critical arterial link between 67th and Cirque Drive, something that has been needed since before cityhood. So construction started in late September and is almost done. So they've made great progress despite weather, despite all the things that come with trying to do wintertime construction. So we're looking in good shape out there, and we're anxious to do a ribbon cutting on that project with council. And this is certainly one to celebrate. The second one is we are a significant federally grant-funded project is going to be ready to go out to bid next month. It's being reviewed by the state, and of course that is the Chambers Creek Road Phase 1 project from Bridgeport all the way to the Charles Wright Academy that includes a signalized pedestrian crosswalk that you all remember when you council added that into the project. The total cost of the entire this segment of Phase 1 is $2.4 million, of which $2.1 million is federally grant funded with a local match of $300,000. So I'm excited to report that in addition to all the other construction that's going on in University Place with the private sector, there is some significant infrastructure with a lot more on the way. So that's the end of my report, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
Mr. Sugg, thank you for the report, and glad to hear about that great progress. So yes, those are some missing links for us. And the ratio of grant funds to local dollars is actually quite impressive in my mind. So well done all the way around. Look forward to that ribbon cutting and getting that section put into place. I'm going to move on to our other council comments, and Councilmember Keel is at the front end of that. So would you have any comments you'd like to make, Councilmember Keel?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple comments this week. The first thing from the AWC front, as you all may recall, with the transportation bill that's before our state legislature this year that they're considering, it's a significant amount of money, $16 billion over 3 or 4 years, or 4 years, something like that, and a lot of money. Part of that bill called for the state to impose gas tax, export gas tax to other states. And that didn't go over very well. And there was a lot of consternation, a lot of back and forth that I'm sure that you all read in the news. So subsequently, the legislature backed away from that tax to other states, and it left a gap in their funding. And so they had proposed to do the old thing that they always do, and that is going and sweeping funds out of the Public Works Trust Fund, which is money for cities to borrow to do capital projects within cities. And so they've always swept those funds. So they proposed to do that, and that was met with a big AWC, we were totally against that. A big backlash. A lot of cities, our legislative committee got together and we proposed writing a letter to the legislature, which we did. We asked city council members to also sign on to that letter. A few of us here did, and thank you for those that did sign on to that letter. We had 104 or 115 some odd number of folks, individual council members that signed on to that letter that went out to the legislature, and it was successful. I've heard since then that they've backed away from wanting to sweep the public work trust funds, and they've got some other ideas that aren't as popular either. So, but other people are having to worry about that. So I just want to just report that and thank you all for responding to that. I'm sure there's more to come because the legislature isn't open yet, and they haven't signed off on it. So I'm sure that there's something else that's going to drop on that. The second thing I wanted to report deals with Pierce Transit, and I was in a meeting with the city manager and our engineer in the city planning and engineering from City of Tacoma, and we were talking about the planning for what is called BRT, Bus Rapid Transit Line 2, which is actually going to come from Lakewood through University Place into downtown Tacoma. And that, as you guys may know, that we have a bus now that runs up and down the length of Bridgeport right through our city. And that route is going to turn into a bus rapid transit route. And so we're starting that discussion now. There's some planning that has to go into play. I will tell you that that planning is fraught with a lot of risks. I'll put it that way. And one of the things that they do with bus rapid transit is they actually convert the streetscape into something that's conducive for rapid bus transportation, which is way different than just regular old cars driving down the street, the configurations. And so what I'm thinking is that as it goes down Bridgeport, and if it's a BRT, then Pierce Transit wants to change the look and the feel of Bridgeport through University Place. I think that's something that we need to pay very close attention to, okay? Because they're going to construct things down that road, and it's going to be a different feel right through the heart of our town, okay? And so I think we need to flag that and be on top of putting our input into that whole process. So I'll stop there, and that'll be my report for this week. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Keel. Appreciate that, and appreciate the heads up issue on the bus rapid transit and some of the impacts from that. Sounds like a good discussion to have with our friends in Faircrest, since they currently share that seat with us, and see if we can't put something together. All right, and that brings us to Councilmember Woods. Would you have any comments you'd like to make?
I do, Mayor. Thank you. Just a couple of comments again on public safety. If you recall at the last meeting, I said there's some bills that we should be paying attention to. Well, you may have seen in the paper that 2 bills recently passed. These are good things. They clarified use of military equipment and less lethal options. Governor signed those and they're effective immediately. Though my understanding is the Sheriff's Department still needs to write policy, but we're getting there. A couple other bills are in process still. One on reasonable suspicion, another on vehicle pursuit, and another one on catalytic converters, and the theft of them, of course. And those are in process and still have hope. The one bill that I was really in favor of apparently never made it out of committee, and that's the one that would dedicate a portion of the state sales tax back to cities for public safety purposes. That apparently died, at least that's my current understanding. But I think we should encourage our legislative team to approach that again next year, because that would be a huge benefit for us as a city. That's my comments for tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And some of the legislative thoughts about what's going on. Excellent. Councilmember McCluskey, you're up.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. I attended the SHAPE meeting on March the 4th, and they had a PowerPoint presentation on Home in Tacoma, Tacoma's program, and their planning department director, Elliot Barnett, provided the commentary on that, what they're doing to increase the housing stock and the housing diversity, and some of the projects that were going forward out of that. And so I have that PowerPoint, I saved it. So if anyone is interested, I would be happy to forward it to any council members who are interested in reviewing it. I did forward it to our mayor, and hopefully maybe our planning commission could review it as they're going through some of the our housing action toolkit to glean, as we call, the low-hanging fruit. Maybe they'll glean some ideas from this PowerPoint and what the city of Tacoma is doing. Not that I'm in favor of everything that they're doing, but there might be some, golden nuggets in that PowerPoint. They also talked about revising some of the draft documents as they form the advisory board to the SHAPE executive board. So there is pretty extensive documents going out there. So we reviewed it, we had discussion, and we'll be bringing that back at our next month's meeting in April. And then they made an offer of employment to Jason Guthier who's worked with Habitat for Humanities. And so he's looking to come on as the SHAPES director, which is, as they're going through the negotiations, Mr. Guthier has mentioned that he was interested in a higher salary range. So all that is coming forward. Remember, there's only 1.5 FTE, and there's the, that defined definitive salary range that everyone initially, signed off on, and some of the scope of the programming sounds like it's going to grow as well. So I'll leave it with that for you all to ponder, and I'll come back with other updates to how the SHAPE is shaping up. Oh, there's also which is interesting, this is an aside, my comment, as I'm reviewing the advisory board's documentation, there was several adjectives and comments in regards to influencing the boards and the city. And so I changed that up so that it'll be more, neutral, providing the data, and the board makes up their mind and sets direction, instead of the feel that I was getting the other way around. So I'll be cognizant of that as that comes up for the final review. All right. So you guys, I'm signing off now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember McCluskey. Thank you for keeping us in shape, so to speak. So appreciate that. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Councilmember Fleming, would you like to make any comments tonight?
That's a hard act to follow. I better get myself in shape for this one. But thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had two quick comments. One is I really appreciated Councilmember Keel putting the BRT on our radar screen. I find it both intriguing but also concerning when you have another legislative body trying to, I'm not implying they're trying to dictate, but certainly leaning in that direction on how we're going to look as a city through our central portion. We've spent 25 years really building our city and defining how that we wanted to look and feel. I'll just be very blunt and say I'll be doggone if I could use something stronger, but we're on camera. But to have somebody else come in and try to take that apart. So I'm highly interested in how that evolves over time. I also wanted to just say thank you again to Mr. Gollum Borodko this evening for joining us in the city proclamation. I think that proclamation, on behalf of our citizens was extremely timely. I know as a city, we're really a small part of the Western world when you compare that to the Ukrainians that are really true giants standing really firm against a tyrant I call him the dictator Putin, because that's really what he is, and a bully to the West. So, I think we can all take a lesson from the Ukrainians on what it means to really put it on the line when you talk about preserving your freedoms and fighting for justice. My heart is really with the Ukrainians tonight, and I just wish as the West we could get our act together. And I'm not talking about as a city, I'm talking about as nation states on the West Side, get our act together to really send a clear message that people don't need to be bullying. I think someone made the comment earlier about peace and really trying to get focused on that versus this unprovoked war that we've got going on. And now the slaughter of just innocent civilians is just, it's uncalled for. So again, thanks to the city for standing up and putting this proclamation out there. That was heartfelt, I'm sure, by many people. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And Councilmember Belisi.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Fleming, for your kind words regarding the proclamation. I think you spoke well on council's behalf. I think the majority of us are in line with your thoughts, so thank you very much for being so eloquent. I just wanted to let council know and our community know that after 2+ years, Gallows Grilled Chicken in Town Center is up and running. They are open. They're still in their soft opening phase, still trying to work through some glitches with the equipment, but they are open in the afternoons and evenings for late lunch and dinner. And you need to go and try them. It's definitely been worth a wait. The chicken is absolutely excellent, and staff is extremely helpful and polite. So please make your way to the village at Chambers Bay and go and welcome Gallows into our community. I understand that the owner is going to be having a open house or grand opening later this month after he works through some of his glitches, but it's definitely been well worth the 2-year wait. So that's all my comments.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Councilmember Belisi. And yes, the chicken is very good. I've had a chance to experience that as well. As far as, in fact, just picking up on my comments from there, there is a ribbon cutting scheduled to March 30th at 1:30 as well for Gallows, and hopefully folks can make that, and perhaps there'll be a sample. I don't know, but I think there might be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there chicken involved in that?
I think so. So, but we've been getting busy again with ribbon cuttings now that we have certainly more than a pause in the COVID issues. So this last Tuesday, we had a ribbon cutting as well, and that was with the UP Wellness Spa located in 40th Street. They offer a variety of treatments and lots of things designed to improve your well-being. And as the name implies, they're a big focus or at UP at the Wellness Spa. So the owner, Delicia Johnson, is a veteran and having served in both the Navy and the Army, so 2 services, that's pretty good. And her has the support of her family and friends, of course, in putting this together. She has our support as well, and glad to see that new investment in our community. We have some more ribbon cuttings coming up as well, and council, keep an eye on your mailbox, and we'll get things notified for you there. A couple of other things going on. I did have earlier today the opportunity to participate in District Court Redistricting Committee, which is a first-time experience for me. In the city of Pacific, you might know that it is split by a county line between King County and Pierce County. Well, there's been a request that the Pierce County section of that city be allowed to vote in King County's elections for district court. And with that, the district court in King County provides that service to them. There's just a really fascinating little bit of governmental trivia about how this has to pass through a committee at the local level, made up of most of the mayors and a county council member and this presiding judge and the prosecuting attorney and just a whole host of folks. So some of those folks met this afternoon for about maybe a whole 15 minutes. And we worked through the issue, studied it hard, discussed it thoroughly, and voted unanimously to support that as it goes forward to the county council for approval. It does not affect anything other than the voting for district court. And it doesn't affect any other votings they may do in Pierce County, nor does it affect revenues between the jurisdictions either. Just a little bit of governmental trivia, something that I find occasionally fascinating. Did want to report too that the city did jump into the discussion on the Public Works Trust Fund. I know that Eric, on the council's behalf and at my encouragement as well, had contacted our 28th district delegation and expressed concerns over the Public Works Trust Fund drawdown. So I appreciated his efforts in that and all. Wanted to report to you as well that I've been contacting each of the chairs of our various commissions with the intention of sitting down with them to just get familiar with how things are going. You may remember from a retreat back in January, I had mentioned that I would reach out to them and hopefully bring them into our meetings a couple more times a year. And so this is the start of that process. So far, I've met with the Public Safety Commission, and I'm working on some time in the very near future here to meet with Economic Development and with the Planning Commission, and with Parks Commission and the Planning Commission, and then in time with Economic Development. I'll keep you abreast of those items as we move forward. Wanted to also mention, it isn't that we are necessarily changing this from a city to an international agency, but at the next council meeting, there will be a proclamation that is also to be, I'm asking to be passed on our consent agenda. It'll be going to the Philippine Consulate in San Francisco, and it'll be thanking them for coming to University Place and opening up a satellite office for, about 10 days or so. They will be here in UP servicing people associated with or from the Philippines, their nationals or others, and they see this as a important bit of work and a good place to do it. We're proud to have them, and I've asked to attend a function they have on behalf of the council, or as the mayor on behalf of the community, and wanted to bring with me a proclamation that I thought would be suitable. So you'll see that on your consent agenda. A much more happy occasion for a proclamation than today's. And certainly what we have seen occur in the last 11 days is very shaking and very troubling. We are, in our own lives, it makes me question what we all do at times. And I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like to be immediately uprooted and moving with your family away from your home, your forever home, if you will. It is a very difficult time, and to the extent that we can offer support and anything we can do, certainly I'm interested in doing that for our citizens and for our broader communities as well. Let's see. And I think, I was going to mention about the RCC, the Rainier Communications Commission. We should be getting close to having a franchise agreement drafted with Comcast. I look forward to getting that on your agenda soon also. And I think that is probably enough for this evening on my comments. Councilmember Wood, I see your hand is up. Is there something you'd like to add?
Yes, just briefly, first echo both yours and Councilmember Fleming's comments on Ukraine. Obviously concur with the horrific nature of the situation, but we have citizens in our city, Ukrainian Americans, who have relatives there in Ukraine. I've talked to more than one. And I expect now, with at current count 1.7 million Ukrainian refugees, at some point, some of them may make their way to our community. And obviously, without knowing what that looks like or when that will happen, it's hard to plan. But I would encourage us members of the council and to support our members of the community as they bring in family or even strangers to try and welcome them and help them establish new roots, at least for the time they are here. So that was my only other comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. Very good. Does anybody else have any closing statements before we move on to close it? Let's see. Wait. I'm moving to a study session. Boy, I just am in a hurry to get through this meeting, I guess. We're going to move on to our study session, and I think Mr. Sugg is ready to tell us all about our EMC agreement. Mr. Sugg.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I have with me tonight our police chief, Greg Primo, and public safety manager, Jennifer Hales, two experts in public safety, police and public safety. But let me just hit some highlights. Back in January, as you mentioned, Mayor, council had a retreat, an all-day retreat. Spent the better part, actually all afternoon, dealing with and setting goals for the next biennium. And out of that goal setting exercise, police and public safety became your number one goal. And what this survey agreement with EMC Research that will be conducted by EMC Research, if council so approves it, will allow us to gauge the community's support for public safety, for additional public safety, and will help staff build outreach efforts and preparation support for more specific council public safety objectives in the coming biennium. So I just wanted to alert you to that the dollar amount is $38,100. It seems like a very specific dollar amount. It's tied directly to the proposal. If you look in the EMC materials in their proposal, they had option 6. What this does, if they need all 15 minutes per survey, there's a range depending on how the length of survey. We don't believe, and they don't believe, they're going to need all 38,100, but we put that amount in there just in case it turns out to be thus. So this is really for you've already you've heard from EMC. We didn't back in August, and tonight is basically bringing it back, reminding you what this is about. And especially on the heels of your goal setting exercise and in preparation for your next goal retreat, assuming we can get the results back in time, we will, this will be in support of those efforts and the council's desire to understand where the community is with respect to public safety. So those are just some broad comments, Mayor and council members. I have subject matter experts with me. If you have detailed questions, and we can bring them in, and if necessary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zug. Appreciate that. Council, do you have any questions at this particular point? Let's see. I guess I have one just while you think about that, which is this document or this, I guess we'll say document, seems to carry a date back into late spring of 2021. And I assume at this point we still have some confidence that the bid prices or the numbers haven't changed in terms of the cost.
I'm going to ask either Greg or Jennifer to respond to that.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. No, we did check as recent as February 3rd to confirm the pricing schedule. And August of 2021 was the last touch.
Yes. Yeah, I was just thinking it's a May 27, 2021 on the bid document, or the price schedule, whatever is the proper term there. But great. So we know it's still current. They're still standing by those offered rates, and appreciate knowing that. Councilmember Keel.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And Steve, thanks for the report. I got to tell you, I mean, this is, as we all know, this is our number one goal here. And when I heard that we were studying this, I was taken a little bit aback, but then staff had to help me. I thought we were already doing this, quite frankly. I thought we, was like, let's make it happen, as far as, getting the data. And so my first thing is, I mean, I hope, and when it's appropriate tonight, I'm gonna make a motion to suspend the rules and take a vote to whether or not we're going to send this on to staff to get them the go ahead to actually enter into this contract. That would be one. The second thing is that I had a question about what is the next step, right? And when are we going to do and take that next step? When I asked the question first, it was, yeah, we got to do the study, but we also now have to talk about what it is that we're going to do with the data. And my understanding from staff is that still remains to be seen. And we as a council haven't talked about it or haven't shaped it or haven't worked with staff to talk about what the next step is about. And so, I'm going to I'm trying to push this along a little bit, so that we aren't, just languishing between, for another 4-5 months without anything happening. So those are my 2 comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Councilmember Keel. So let me comment a little bit myself here on that. So just as we go back in time a little, as we're moving forward with this, back in the late summer, early fall, there was a fair amount of consternation in the local law enforcement communities that we live in and around us, having to do with how things were being done. There were some changes in legislation. They were beginning to take place, or at least create a lot of dust in the air. And we decided in the midst of all of that to hit the pause button, just because we weren't sure we were going to get a true look at what our community is thinking, so much as a less distinct look in a special time when things were frankly a bit confusing. So if we feel like that environment has changed, and this would be an appropriate time to move forward with this, I would say also another thing that was in my mind, and Councilmember Keel, you brought it up, is what do we do with the data? So this becomes a snapshot in time, and usually we're going to want to be ready to do something with that information while it's fresh, because the longer it sits, the less value it has. It becomes like a bottle of milk. You know, there's an expiration date on it. And so we want to be ready to do something with the data. Now, potentially that could mean moving to some sort of an election issue. And so we've included in the packet this evening the election dates in the near term to give us some sense of what timing may be like for us. And that starts driving some more questions as well. It starts where we want to have our timeline for this process. And we could most likely authorize the contract and then figure out an exact timeline. But it is an opportunity for us to think about where we go with this and when is the best time for us to get that information. So that's just some things I wanted to get out on the table a little bit. Other thoughts from council? Excuse me, Councilmember Wood. I almost used your first name.
I'll forgive you if you do. Thank you, Mayor. So when I was out campaigning last year, the #1 issue I heard from our citizens was public safety. They had a lot of concerns, not about the quality of our policing forces, but about their capability to respond to all the things that they were, especially things like property crimes. There just wasn't the numbers there to do it. And I would agree with Councilmember Keel. I think starting the process sooner rather than later is essential. It doesn't get better with time. We can look at the numbers that stretch out over the 20 years that our finance department can put together about our funding for policing, and they don't get better. And so I really think we need to take a look at this issue sooner rather than later. And I'm all for developing a coherent plan that will work. I think a 1-year timeline, depending on what the survey results come back with, would be an appropriate thing to look at. But I do think we need to start. If we just delay longer, we're not doing anybody, including ourselves, any favors. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other thoughts? Councilmember McCluskey.
Okay, thank you. I concur with Council Members Keel and Wood. If we have this short suspense of the timeline going out to the ballot in 2022, and we're doing the survey now, I think it would make sense that they're congruent and to do it this year. If we're not going to go out for the 2022 election, then probably delay the survey until we're serious about, going in and doing a ballot effort to hopefully gain more police services. And so apparently that's what the survey is probably going to tell us. Is it the sweet spot or not? And so with that, the milk starts to be dated, doesn't it?
Right.
But at least we know, because we would like to be successful on the first go out the door. we don't want it to be a failed vote on our police services. I don't want to come back. There's never an assurity, but if we can get the odds in our favor going out the door, I would feel more comfortable with that. So if this is the council's intention, if for 2022, then yes, let's get this sense of urgency and get it out the door and see where everyone is at. If they're feeling poor, they don't want any more taxes, or they would rather put more money into police services and funding. I think the engagement that I've had with several citizens and with the chief, those citizens would, I don't know how much they would offer an ante up out of their pockets in the taxes, but I think they understand that we can't sustain ourselves with 2 police officers per shift anymore. Like Councilmember Kill says, we're growing up now, so we need to ensure that the safety and the influx of our population, as well as the surrounding communities that come and interact with our community here, is safe for any unsurly activities that we want to make sure that they're properly taken care of in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. So one of the things that was in my mind as I was thinking about this is the 2022 fall general election. If that's a date that would be workable for us, it is. While people would say it's not an off-year election, in terms of municipal elections, it's an off-year election. The local jurisdictions usually don't have seats running in that particular election, and we're not scheduled to have any. So it tends to be focused a little bit more on some national issues, I suppose. The timing would seem to be about enough time for that. Some others would also say that it might be better to think about a special election period, and that works well for certain types of elections. This is sort of when you get down to it, a bit of a political issue, and we are the community's political experts, I suppose. So anyhow, any thoughts about timing issues? Councilmember Wood.
Well, as far as timing goes, honestly, I think the survey will tell us where we stand right now and where we should go going forward. I think making a decision now would be a shot in the dark. I think we need to start with gathering information, which is what the survey is designed to do. And from there, I think we can develop a coherent plan to move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. And just to be clear, we certainly want to see what the survey says before we get marched too far down the road. But once we get the survey in, are we ready to move then? Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I think everyone here knows, no time is a good time for an election, especially when it comes to raising a tax or a fee. And asking the public to support that. I think, to your point, jump into the caboose before you get the engine on the track is probably ill-advised. I think getting the survey done is prudent. I don't think we're in a position to set a date right now for that election. I would like to see what the data shows first and then come back and have that conversation to say, is it prudent to go for a fall election? Do we go for election the following year? But I think listening and hearing what the people have to say first before we go any further is probably the first step.
Thank you. Very good. Councilmember Belisi.
I am echoing Councilmember Fleming and Councilmember Wood's sentiments. Our hope is, based on our conversation with constituents, that there would be a preponderance of support for a levy, but for us to assume that before the survey is even taken, that citizens think that financially they need to fork over more money, I think is putting the cart before the horse. I think once we get the survey results, we should make it a #1 priority to begin our outreach as soon as we receive the support from that survey, if it looks to be in favor of going towards a levy. And then we can schedule the time from there, because there is going to be a lot of education and outreach that we need to do to our community to inform them as to the reasons why and how we plan to move this forward. So I think setting a date right now is premature. We're assuming something that that our citizens may not have the wish to do at this point. So.
Very good. All good points. Thank you. Councilmember Keel.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I agree with what everyone has said already about not setting the date and waiting for the data. I also want to underscore what Councilmember Belisi just said, in that my hope is that this survey would show us where the gaps are, right? Not only do you think we should, raise taxes for police, I think that, that's going to be a big no, right? Because people still have questions about what it is we're doing with the funds. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people still in this city believe that all of their property taxes come to the city. And why are we not, using the money that we're paying 43 cents, 80 some cents a dollar, they look at their whole dollar and they think all that's coming to the city, and it's not. We get 9 cents, as we all know, right? And so where's those other 80 cents going, to their place? So they don't know where the money is. So I think that, I hope that this survey helps us understand where miscommunication is, the gaps. And then there's going to be a time that we're going to have to spend around education, like Caroline said, right? And then we begin to build upon that. So there's some work that has to be done. And I think when I was talking with staff, the contract that we're talking about tonight is just to do the data gathering. We then, I think, need to have a contract that helps us build the education piece, right? So there's some work to be done.
Councilmember Keel, did you have a motion in mind?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to move that we suspend the rules and take up a vote to consider this item, the contract with EMC, tonight.
Is there a second on that motion?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Excuse me for not knowing if that's a privileged motion, if there's any debate on suspending the rules or not. I find I'm unclear.
Mr. Mayor, under Council Rule 8, section or paragraph 2, a motion to suspend the rules is non-debatable and it requires a supermajority with 6 members present. It requires 4 affirmative votes.
Very good. Thank you. Ever ready. Appreciate it. So with that, then we'll go to a vote. And Emmy, if you could do a roll call vote for us, please.
Sure, Mayor. Councilmember Keel.
Councilmember Keel, aye.
Councilmember Wood.
Councilmember Wood, aye.
Councilmember McCluskey.
Councilmember McCluskey, aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Councilmember Fleming, aye.
Councilmember Belisi.
Councilmember Belisi, aye.
Mayor Worthington.
Mayor Worthington, aye.
A vote results 6 ayes. Motion carries.
Very good. Motion carries.
Oh, you put yourself on mute again.
Sorry. Very good. So the motion is passed, and we now can consider whether we approve the contract as described earlier for EMC in the, assuming we had a motion to that effect. Does someone want to make such a motion?
I'm not tracking you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll make the motion. I move that we approve a contract that we give the authority to the city manager to enter into contract with the EMC to do the study.
Councilmember Belisi seconds that vote now that she's on board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The previous action had suspended the rules, allowing us to consider this issue. That's where we were. I should have stated that more clearly. I'm sorry. But now we have the action in front of us, and is there any discussion on the approval of the contract for EMC? And I suppose, do we take, I'm assuming we also have some opportunity for public comment on this too. Mr. Kaiser, is that correct?
Under council rules, because it's on for action, public comment or public input is required under your rules unless affirmatively waived by the majority of council, which I haven't heard anybody make that motion.
So there is an opportunity for public comment. If you wish to make comments, we have followed the same procedures as previously. That information's in front of you on the screen now. And of course, you can call us. You can call 1-509-342-7253, meeting ID 330-220-080#. And you can use your phone to raise your hand with a *5 function. Once you're called upon, press *6. Similarly, you can connect by a computer as well. I'm going to give folks a moment to do that, and then I see Councilmember Wood's hand is up. So, Councilmember, at this point. Or maybe we've all frozen.
I'm good. Can you?
So, Councilmember Wood, I see your hand is up. Is that, that may not be intentional. I wasn't sure.
It's intentional. If we're going to discussion, I just have it when we're ready. I can have a comment.
Yeah, I was just wanted to give a little bit of time for folks to call in or connect. And let me see if, Emmy, do you have anybody at this point?
Mayor, there's nobody on the lobby right at the moment.
Okay. Let's go ahead and Councilmember Wood, make your comment, please.
Just one question I have about this contract, and that's surveys, especially something as sensitive as this. The way questions can be worded on the surveys really can influence public opinion right up just by asking the question. Is there going to be an opportunity, or I guess the better question is, who will be reviewing and approving the survey before it actually is released or before they start the actual action to the public? Is that process been thought through yet?
Mr. Sugg, do you or your team have some comments on that?
So I do. I'm going to ask Jennifer to comment on this because this is this is a question we sometimes get. So.
Sure, and I believe Councilmember Wood, that work has been done and was done in August before you came on board. All of the survey questions were revisited and presented to council, and then sort of slightly altered and changed. Obviously went over repeatedly with public safety staff and, being sensitive to exactly what you're referencing, so.
Outstanding, thank you very much.
Any other comments or discussion before we take the vote? Councilmember Keel.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. To just follow up on Councilmember Wood's question, and I know we did that, and I'm sure I was a part of that whole process. But it'd be great, I think, if we could have the questions again, just so we can refresh ourselves of what they are, not to change them or anything like that, but just so that we know. I mean, I would just love to know what they are, again.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Otherwise, are we ready to vote? Kind of looks that way. So, Amy, if you wouldn't mind, just one more time tonight.
All right. Councilmember Keel.
Councilmember Keel, aye.
Councilmember Wood.
Councilmember Wood, aye.
Councilmember McCluskey.
Councilmember McCluskey, aye.
Councilmember Fleming,
Councilmember Fleming, aye.
Councilmember Belisi,
Councilmember Belisi, aye.
and Mayor Worthington.
Mayor Worthington, aye.
Vote results, 6 ayes, motion carries.
Very good. And with that, I think that might just bring us to the end of our agenda. So unless we have any closing comments or someone wishes to object to ending the meeting, I think we're going to, in fact, we are going to declare this meeting completed. Thank you all for your attention and a good night's work. All right. Look forward to next time. Take care. Bye now.
Good night, everybody.